Water? I will. This is going to be City of Port Richey City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 22nd at 7. So we're starting right on time. At this time, I wanted to ask everyone to stand and invite Danny Fields for the invocation and remain standing.
Okay, God, we come to you in the precious name of Jesus, and you said that we could ask for wisdom, and I thank you that you give us wisdom and counsel for this board meeting with the mayor and the staff here. Thank you that all the stuff on the agenda with Cody River and the stuff with the water pumps and the budgets and any new agendas or old agendas and stuff with the police department, the fire department. We thank you for them being good stewards and servants, leaders, reflecting in the community with that leadership. And we give you glory and honor. You said in Psalms 101 that we could enter your presence with thanksgiving and praise. So we praise you and we thank you all in Jesus' name. Amen.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Tremblay.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilman Bill Colombo.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here. Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve council minutes.
Motion to approve council minutes.
Second. All in favor? Aye. This time we're going to move on to commentary from the general public. I have a sheet that several people signed up. Anyone who was unable to sign up that wants to speak, I'll allow you guys to speak as well by show of hands, but we'll start with the list. The first person on the list is Stephen Clark. Welcome. If you don't mind, come on up to the microphone and just put your address and introduce yourself.
Yes, good evening, Your Honor, the Mayor, City Council, distinguished staff, and honorable civil servants. My name is Stephen Clark. I'm with the Office of Disaster Assistance of the United States Small Business Administration. I, however, do not live in the state of Florida. We're based out of the Atlanta office of Field Operations Center for the U.S. Small Business Administration. The address of that is 101 Marietta Street Northwest, Suite 700, Atlanta, Georgia, 30303. Although I've never actually been to that office, I worked in the field and for loan processing out of the Fort Worth office. But I guess I'm not the important person here. Our outreach to the public is really the important part and what we have to offer to explain to local government, but more importantly for your constituents, your residents, businesses, and whatnot who are in your area. But basically, I would like to take a couple minutes, and I thank you for granting me this time, to discuss our disaster loan programs. I am in Florida related to our outreach for disaster loans for relief, recovery, and whatnot for Hurricane Ian, based on a presidential disaster declaration. I do like to highlight that many people are unaware of what exactly the SBA can provide in our disaster relief efforts. And I do like to highlight that the SBA is the largest source of disaster relief funds, at least in terms of government operations, greater than other portions of the federal government, and of course in the aggregate, state governments. But it's not a competition. We're simply trying to offer to the public what Congress has given us in the mandate to provide disaster loans to businesses, but most importantly, and the largest area of disaster loans we offer are physical damage disaster loans to homeowners and to renters. And I've passed out, or actually it was provided to you by email and then printed out a fact sheet, and I've also given some other information about the programs we have. But to briefly go over, I would like to discuss our types of loans, and then a little bit about application. And then if you had any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer that for you. But the first type of disaster loans we have are the physical damage disaster loans. These are available for homeowners, renters, as well as private nonprofits and for businesses pretty much of all sizes if they've suffered physical damage, because we want to help employers be able to rebuild, recover, and maintain employment in communities, which is one of an important thing, I'm sure, for both the communities and for the government to be doing. In terms of the homeowners for real estate, we offer loans up to $200,000. These would be for uncompensated losses such as underinsured or uninsured losses. The $200,000 up to 20% can be used for mitigation to the extent that there are losses up to that amount. The funds also can be used for relocation. So if for whatever reason a homeowner decides they want to go somewhere else, maybe it's across the street, maybe it's to a different state, that is an option for them. The next type of loans we have are for personal property. This applies to both homeowners and renters in that type of loan program we have. The uncompensated loss max on this is $40,000. This can be used to cover insurance deductibles, like I said, once again, underinsured or uninsured losses, and can even be used for things like motor vehicles, if your car was, say, flooded or maybe a tree fell on it or something like that. Then businesses and most private nonprofits are eligible for the physical damage loans as well. But the business loan caps are a little different because they have an overall statutory limit of $2 million for the disaster loans between both the physical damage loans and the economic injury loans I will talk about in about a second. So those are the physical damage types. We've got the business loans, we have the homeowners and renters. I would like to emphasize that the application deadline for the physical damage disaster loans is January 12th. So I'd encourage anyone who is interested or anyone you know who may have suffered damage, whether it's in Pasco County or anywhere in the declared disaster area counties of Florida, to please apply as soon as possible so they don't miss out on that deadline. The other type of loans we have, which has an application deadline, which is June 29th, are our economic injury disaster loans. These are for private nonprofits and for small businesses. These do not require any demonstration of physical damage to any kind of property. These are working capital loans, which would be used to help the business or the nonprofit recover if they had a reduction in revenue due to the disaster. I've talked with some nonprofits who had major fundraisers which were severely interrupted, things like that just couldn't be rebooked. And I've talked with a number of businesses that were in mandatory evacuation areas in western Pasco County that pretty much had to close down for a week, one way or another, due to the orders, but then also having their employees be away and having issues with suppliers and other kinds of issues like that. So that is something that some businesses around here have even expressed interest in, and they may be interested in if they become aware of it. Basically, in terms of applying for the loans, a person can apply online, a person can apply by phone, a person can apply by mail. The SBA also has representatives at the FEMA disaster recovery centers. The closest ones are in St. Petersburg, and there's one in Riverview. I understand these are probably an hour or more away. There is also an SBA center in Tampa on Hillsborough Avenue, which may be marginally closer, but I do appreciate it is a bit of a distance away. But if anyone needs assistance in applying, there are SBA representatives at those centers, and they can help a person essentially line by line through their application. So if they're getting stuck and they need assistance, that's a very good option for them, so they don't give up because of frustration or whatnot. But those are pretty much the basics of the programs we have to offer: the physical damage, the economic injury, disaster loans, a bit about how to apply. And if you have any other questions or whatnot, feel free to reach out. I believe you all have my contact information now. If you have any other questions down the road or this evening. But I thank you very much for your time and your attention this evening. And a spot, of course, on your agenda at your meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Before you go to the council, have any questions? No questions.
Yes. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for the information. Very helpful. The next person that we have for commentary is Chris Mayer.
Yes, Chris Mayer. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Servants, Councilwoman and councilmen. My name is Chris Mayer. I'm here with my wife Patty and our son David. David is one of 7 children that we have. But I own a house on Blue Point Drive at the end of Blue Point Drive here. I've owned the house for about 6 years. I've done my best to keep it nice and clean, done a little bit extra, and there's a little round curb in the middle of our cul-de-sac that's probably 6 feet or 8 feet in diameter. When I got here, it looked like terrible, and I went in and rejuvenated the whole thing. I actually fixed some concrete in there and repainted it and painted some stuff, and it looked great until one of the neighbors had a pool company come in that backed over the palm tree and broke the curb up in multiple places. And of course, I called him on the phone because I saw him on my cameras, and I'll be out to get it next week. Well, that was the company that went bankrupt, the pool company went bankrupt, so he never came out next week. So I've been complaining to Port Richey about just the concrete laying all over there and the mulch falling off in the street, and talked to all of my neighbors, and all my neighbors and I came to the conclusion that it was probably best if we just removed the thing. You know, it's the only cul-de-sac I know in the whole area of City of Port Richey, and I ride around my golf cart all the time, that has a blocking round curb thing right in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Whenever a trash truck comes in there, I brought pictures if anybody would like to see. Since the repair was done, would anybody like to see the pictures?
We have a motion. All in favor? Aye. If you can present them, please.
So these pictures show the repair that was done by Port Richey, but you'll also see brand new, fresh, trash truck breakup concrete stuff happening on it already. Since then, one of the issues I have, and I didn't bring a picture of it, is the sewer line in my front yard now is starting to cave in and collapse where the trash truck comes through, and they can't make the curve, so they cut into my yard every time. I was just asking if you ought to remove the thing. I just think it's an eyesore. We now have a tree falling over on it. And before I go in and rejuvenate it again, I just ask you to remove it altogether. And the neighbors over there, I've talked to each and every one of them in my cul-de-sac, and they're all on the same board. There's one other thing I had to talk about too, so I wanted to make sure is there any questions about that at all? No, go ahead. Okay. So I'm on Miller's Bayou. I have a brand new seawall. I spent, $60,000 to redo the seawall because it was falling in the water when I got there. I did the dock, and I got it all approved through you guys. I've got the jet ski dock and everything else. And the sun's just eating me alive out here. I've done everything I can to try to keep my boat from getting eaten alive. And I would like to be able to have, and I know this is not something you guys do now, but I would think it was something you would consider, is, we spend a lot of money for our lots. We're paying huge taxes over there. My taxes are $5,400 a year now. I'd like a little cover, even if it's canvas of some kind on an aluminum frame, to be able to hook to my the pilings to cover my boat and my jet skis. I understand we don't want to block the view, so that's an issue to take into hand. But really, from my place, I would only be my neighbor and I blocking it. So I brought pictures if you guys would like those as well. Anybody?
Motion.
Motion.
Okay.
Need a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
And I just wish you would consider that too. I want to tell you, I've been here for 6 years. You guys have been tremendous. I've had a good experience with everybody, with the city that I've dealt with, including law enforcement and everything. So I got to tell you, great job. I'm proud to live here, and I'm now a Florida resident this past year. So thank you very much for all you do. All right? Thank you. Are there any questions at all, or we're good?
I don't have any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
The next person up is Mr. Danny Fields. Welcome.
My name's Danny Fields, and my address is going to be 8114 Leo Kidd Avenue here in Port Richey. And I'm standing here representing a lot of people. Somebody Cares, my pastor, my community, and I want to thank you for your service and your leadership. I really appreciate that. Leonard said that, he's so grateful to serve you for all the years, and he's going to continue to do that. But right now, he's having some issues with his daughter and that going on with health, and so I'm stepping up as much as I can to cover his positions, which is big task to fill. But, with the help of the team of the church and those that work with us, we could do it together. And that's what I see here. You working together, working for the best for the community and for your families. And there's another thing I want to say is I'm working with code enforcement in the Holiday Park area as well, dealing with 8 violations there, and we got 5 of them completed. I've turned that information in. There's one we're willing to complete. The others, they are not complying, but then code enforcement could take further action on that if they don't comply. I will go back there and let them know that I've been here working with you in City Hall, and you've given a lot of mercy and grace and lenience, but there's laws and there's fines that could come out of that. So I understand that, so they need to know that, and if it needs to be enforced, then you guys do your job. And then we got an event coming up with Somebody Cares as well on Thanksgiving meal delivery with widows and disabled through Meals on Wheels, and the church and our community is stepping up. Last year we served over 700 meals on that day. We go in there, we let them know that they're not alone, like men and women, veterans and stuff that might have family that live in other states. And we spend little time with them, not that long, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but that makes a big difference. And that's what the church and our community is about. That's what City Hall is about, working together in the community to better all people. So I'll close it out with this. You guys are having Thanksgiving. I'm glad for you and your family. Enjoy that time with your family, because like with I'm getting a little emotional, but it's okay. Like with Leonard, when we lose loved ones, and this is going to happen, you know, we are grateful for having family and friends in a community that stands behind us and that could pray with us, encourage us, and be there when we need each other. And thank you for your time. Blessings.
That's all we had to sign up. I see there's a couple other people here that may not have had an opportunity to sign up, but I wanted to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak. So by show of hands, seeing no hands at this time, I wanted to move on and invite Mr. Dude, our city manager, for some opening commentary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity to attend the West Market Action Committee. That's a county function, and we gave them a briefing on activities and projects that are going on in Port Richey. That group functions very similar to our own CAC. It's appointed citizens who have interest in serving, so I was glad to go and visit with them. Had an opportunity to meet with Pasco County staff that are working on the idea of a shuttle or a trolley that would run from south of Newport Richey up Grand, through downtown Newport, around the park, and then on up Grand, past the residents and businesses on Grand, crossing 19, looping around the Cody River Landing area, and then back down 19 to the parking garage. So that's very preliminary discussion, but there's interest with that county entity. County's a big operation, but they have interest. Their mission is economic development. So that's an ongoing discussion. I want to thank all the staff for their preparations for Tropical Storm, Hurricane Nicole. Practiced it once with Ian and got a little better at it with Nicole, and staff put a lot of time and energy into getting ready a second time. Had no significant impact, but felt like we were prepared. Brush pickup continues. The Public Works and Utility guys are out there and in the process of picking up brush. So anybody that wants brush picked up, get it out to the street, and our guys will get it. Had an opportunity today to discuss the New Year's Eve events that are planned for the Cody River Landing area. Businesses there have gotten together and kind of pooled their money for advertising. Each of them will be having their own activity on their own property. They wanted to let us know that that's what they're doing. They're not asking for anything specific, but just making sure that city services know, PD and fire in particular. And we're working on some how we staff that, and at least as important, how they pay for it. So still in discussions with them. Our Public Works supervisors directed Duke to stop their operations tomorrow at noon, which will give our guys an opportunity to clean up anything that they've damaged before the end of the day tomorrow. So hopefully Duke and their subcontractors will knock off at 12 o'clock, and if they've caused any problems, we'll have time before the end of the day to clean up after them. Right now, I've got utility staff evaluating candidates for water line replacement. This is a fairly complex process. I know there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of talk, a lot of concern about we've got so many water leaks. Why don't we replace the lines? So what I've asked staff to do is look at places where, find the places where repeated leaks happen in a short distance. As opposed to, sometimes the leak happens on the same street, but it's 100 feet from the last time it leaked. Here's the business decision that we have to make. We replaced about 400 plus feet of line, I think on Queener. Put a brand new line in. Had that been a contractor project, it would have cost us about $30,000. So about 30 grand for 400 feet. It costs on average about $300 to repair a water leak. That's average, an 8-inch line that's, split 3 feet long. That's a much bigger repair. I can do a lot of repairs for $300 a piece to get to $30,000. But if we've repaired the same 50 feet of pipe 10 times, it's time to look at, replacing that. So I've asked staff to start that evaluation and look for those really highly concentrated. This section of pipe has been repaired multiple times. The numbers, talked to Richie and Sal this morning about the actual numbers of water leaks. Just so you know, if we take out we'll blame Duke, it's actually their subcontractors, but if we take out those water leak incidents, we're fixing about the same number of water leaks every month as we have over the last couple of years. The numbers are staying fairly stable. We continue to do a much better job of letting people know. And I think part of the dynamic out there is that we put pictures on Facebook, we tell people where the leak is, and they're aware of more leaks. But the numbers are relatively stable. They do vary with season. When it rains, the ground swells and push pipes around and they leak. As pipes dry out, the ground dries out, pipes move and they leak. And we can adjust for those kinds of seasonal effects. But the reality is we're fixing about the same number of water leaks every month, plus what should be a very temporary. Duke is doing their work and they add to our workload. But anyways, I've got staff evaluating that, and I think there are places where it would make money sense to, replace the pipe, even though it's a lot more expensive than just putting another $200 or $300 or $400 patch on it. So we'll get those numbers and bring that back to you, because I have no doubt it will be over my spending limit to replace another pipe. So I'll keep you in the loop on that. The DEP consent letter has been signed and returned to DEP. They've signed their portion and it's back in our hands. It's fully executed. Staff continues to work on compliance. We've gone through the list. Some of the points on their list are already completed. Obviously, some of them we have yet to do. Again, obviously, we're starting with the issues that we have a 30-day deadline. We'll get those knocked out first. U.S. Water is going to continue to help us with the compliance component of that. So working on that, but it is official, and we're working through the checklist. The Limestone Pier, the survey work is done. Coastal is now working on the design process. Obviously, when that's done, they'll bring that back to us, and if it's your wish, we'll have them put together bid packets for construction. So that's moving forward, but they tell us that they have completed the survey work, and now it's back to office work. The Cody River Landing properties that the city purchased, the buildings are down, the houses are down. Looks like I drove by it this afternoon. There's a small pile of rubble yet to be removed, but those two structures are down and on their way out. I'm going to put it on the agenda for the next CRA meeting, that we talk about it and confirm that our intent is to look for a suitable purchaser. But that'll be a CRA board meeting discussion at the next CRA board meeting. I've asked staff to gather information, general pricing, companies that do the work of street marking. We've also identified half a dozen streets that are in need of marking. Bay Boulevard, Old Post, Washington, Pine Hill, Pier Road, Limestone Drive, and staff has identified the stop and start points on those roads. I didn't put them into my report. If you want those, I can sure get those to you as well. So they're gathering information. It turns out a lot of asphalt companies don't actually do that part of the job. So we're in the process of finding the companies that specialize in that street marking. The rate study continues. The rate study survey work continues. Stantec's still working on stormwater, and their report back to us last week was they're still on schedule. So that project is moving forward. A couple of reminders. I think all of you got an invite in your box to the Pasco County Economic Development Council. Their Christmas event is on December 1st from 5:30 to 8:30. So there is an RSVP requested. So if you care to attend, let them know. I attended last year. It's a nice event, and a group of both public and private entities to spend time with. I plan to be out of the office and out of town November 25th to November 28th, so Friday through Monday. I'll check my phone occasionally, but unless something really catastrophic happens, we'll wait until Tuesday morning to take care of it. You've noticed Al isn't here. He's out on medical issues. And to wrap up, our thoughts and condolences to Chief Policastri. His mother-in-law passed, and so he's not with us this evening. Captain Quinn was going to join us, but I'm guessing he's running a call right now. So our thoughts and prayers with the Policastri family. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Stand for your questions.
Thank you. I wanted to move on just from commentary from the council, if we may, at this time. And I was going to open up with the commentary. I had a few things, if I may. The first one addresses Mr. Mayor's request. I think there's little projects like that around the city that probably fit better with CRA funds if we're going to make improvements or clean things up with the little medians. And what I wanted to know is if we can put on our next CRA meeting by consensus a small pool of money just for discretionary funds for city management, so they don't have to come back here every time for a smaller project to either, fix a median or make changes in a median or little projects like that. I think that Mr. Duke should have a little bit of discretionary funding for issues specifically like this. If he wants to come out and make changes or remove or whatever a median, he'd be able to do that without having to continually come back to us. Are you guys okay putting that on for the next CRA meeting, just for discussion?
I mean, that would be sense. I would say is to this specific issue, we're not talking a big deal here.
No.
And I would like to, as Mr. Mayor said, just as soon take it out, get it out of the way. I would like to have something from all the property owners there. Not that I don't trust what you're saying, but I don't want for us to knock that out and somebody else have a big issue.
Yeah, the other three neighbors said that we'd really like to train the median. So yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's smack dab in the middle of a roundabout. It's ours, so I mean, we got to do something with it. We have to either maintain it, fix it, or take it out. We got to do something.
But those decisions, I think, in some way may be better just left city management have just some.
So that's pretty much what I'm saying.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
But I just want to make sure there's a funding.
It's a relatively minor issue. We're not talking about like Websville Park here or something.
Right. No.
We're talking about a unique feature that's on that street for whatever reason. I don't know.
But we're okay setting that aside.
I like the idea. It cuts through a lot of red tape instead of, right now the citizens are looking at, why isn't the city moving forward, but having that discretion with our city manager get the job done. I like that.
For smaller projects like
Yes.
that, it makes more sense to me. So I just want to put it on for discussion. I think these types of issues are probably better discussed with CRA because it does, I think that looks kind of blighted in my opinion.
Well, I
So-
mean, yeah, but I mean, and to me, it's just road maintenance. I mean, I just don't see this rising to the level of a CRA project, is all I'm saying.
I'm okay doing it either way, wherever we want to discuss it and whatever funds we want to use, but I wanted to put some aside for Mr.
As far as his tree, I'm all in favor of taking it down. I do have concern though with the CRA audit and how, you know, the intent, and they were very specific as to how are the monies labeled? Has the CRA board said it? Have we approved it? And now we're going and giving him a pot of money of what we don't, I mean, yes, we're labeling it as minor projects, but what is a minor project in the eyes of the CRA audit committee? Because I don't want to.
Well, we can do it out of general funds too, in just a regular meeting, so I don't know how you guys want to do it.
Well, that's my explanation right there. I mean, for this specific issue we're talking about, it's whether we're going in with a loader and we just scoop the thing up or we pave it over, or we send, you know, we plant a palm tree and put in some grass one way or the other and fix the curbs.
It's gonna take a few bucks to do that.
It's gotta take a few bucks, but in the grand scheme of things, we're not talking paving, you know, redoing a whole road.
No, I understand that, but I just want to make sure he has the discretion to do these things without.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's within the discretion of road maintenance.
I would be much more comfortable out of the general fund though, personally. I just don't want to get yelled at by an auditor again.
So by consensus, are we okay putting discussion on general fund just for a little bit of funding for smaller projects?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I ask you why? In other words, you can spend monies to fix roads all day long. It's an
If it's under
expensive.
10 grand, you
Yeah,
can do it.
it's under
without
10 grand.
the
He fixes roads all day long.
That's
You get a
pretty much
pothole,
where
he
I'm
doesn't
coming
call
from,
you to
yeah.
say, can I fix a pothole? I'm trying to follow it, but you're absolutely correct on the CRA. It would have to be very specific for it.
So, I guess the issue is I want to make sure he's got the funding for some of these smaller projects.
Well, have them for 10 grand.
When you say have the
Against
funding, is a matter of whether you've funded for it, you've set a budget, okay? So
No, I got that.
he fixes potholes all day long, so and if it's gonna do an expenditure where we have to hire someone else to come in more than $10,000, then it will go through the procurement process.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is the problem that we don't know if we can get rid of it or not, or is that not your decision, or is that the council's
Probably over
decision,
10
or
grand.
who's, I mean, is that where the problem lies? Like, why didn't we?
I don't think there's a problem. I think he could go take that out and fix the road if he wanted to. I think that's within his discretion.
Maybe it's over 10 grand, maybe it's under 10 grand, but it's a pothole with a tree growing out of it
No,
right now.
I get it, I have one on my neighborhood, I mean, I got
Well,
it.
that's, I was gonna refer to yours too. We either need to clean them up or take them out and just,
I like
fix it.
mine. I just want it mowed, but it's a different story.
That's one of the things that I do. Same story.
Well,
Yeah, you can't remove it because technically he does need the other neighbors buying, because I'm sure at some point one of the neighbors wanted a tree in there.
Right,
Well, from a policy perspective, you're correct. Legally, if it's city property, I don't know, I'm not saying it is, but that, you can do whatever you want. And whether you want to do that for policy is something you want to discuss, maybe go look at it, and if you want council to make the decision, otherwise you can do that all day long. You know, you can do it's a public right of way, I presume, but I don't know. If he wants to go poll neighbors and make that policy, fine. And
I'm sure he-
call some other places to see if they want to.
Not to speak for him, he probably doesn't want to take the tree out and then have 4 other neighbors come here and yelling at us for the tree that he took out that we didn't know about, and then we're all yelling at him, why did you take out a tree that no one knew about? And
Right.
so,
It's a policy issue, yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
that,
I would,
I think was my question,
Yeah,
was like,
policy
why are we
issue.
here with this? Why didn't we just take it out ahead of time or fix, that's what I kind of don't know. What-
I don't know.
Why are we here with this whole thing that,
use it.
Call us, say the trouble you caused.
It's probably about $4,000, my guess. Richie told me once he was gonna take care of it and knock it out. It'd be no problem, a few weeks. He said, give me a few weeks and I'll get it taken care of. Then all of a sudden it got shelved, and then 6 months went by, and, I guess the city manager makes those decisions, and I'm not pointing the finger at you. I appreciate everything you do.
There's a couple of things that I do. One, make sure it's ours. And as Mr. Matthew points out, if it's a city street, I feel comfortable making a decision on it, but there's also a neighborhood political component to it, as you all have discussed. So I would want to either talk to the neighbors or get the survey that was done of the neighbors and use that to make a decision as well. if it's a city street, I
Would
can,
it help you, because the forwarding
Well,
is on
and
the
that-
cul-de-sac I'm talking about personally.
No, we don't, we can't discuss, when the diocese is discussing things, we can't.
so that's the process I would use. There's an
I
authority
guess-
and then there's
General
Politics and
consensus to give
neighborhood.
Mr. Duke the authority to move forward with looking into this and getting back to it, whatever it takes.
And Richie did come to me and, ask me about it. And without this discussion, I'm not comfortable changing the face of your city. So, and there's at least one other in town that some love and some hate. So,
She just wants it mowed.
All right. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is a public transport component with Mr. Dew was talking about. And I had talked to the mayor actually a couple times over in Newport Richey, because they already have transport running just around the Main Street area. And then the MPO was brought up that really the county, Newport Richey and Port Richey should have something that runs kind of between all three in our areas here, because particularly a lot of folks from the county and from Newport Richey want to come out to the waterfront area, and public transport makes sense given some of the parking issues that we have, as well as I think that there's a lot of places that serve alcohol, so public transport seems to make sense from a safety perspective as well. So, I was hoping that, in my opinion, I hope that we continue to explore that option. The next thing that I wanted to bring up is we're in October, started the new budget year for this fiscal year. But I wanted to know if we were going to have quarterly updates like we have in the past to make sure that we're on budget as we work through it, so we can make adjustments if we're either overspending or underspending.
yeah, by city code, I'm required to have quarterly budget meetings with my department heads. Rachel and I schedule those, and we do conduct those meetings, evaluate the budget. I can report back, if we have any outliers, anything that jumps out at us as problematic. But Rachel and I do conduct those meetings every quarter. So once the quarter's concluded, we schedule them with all the department heads. We sit down and go through each department budget with a fine-tooth comb and see where they are, particularly looking at, things like overtime and fuel, those things that sometimes you can't control, but can, jump up on you. So,
And what I'm looking for is not to micromanage that. I just want to know, look at a brief look at the numbers that we're either on track or not on track for our basic budget. So once you have the quarterly reports from all the different department heads, would you be willing to put it just for, not for discussion necessarily, but just for an overview for us so we know where we're at?
yeah, and the finance runs, I think, a weekly report. Monthly. So I get a monthly report from finance where we are both on revenue and expenditures, what percentage of the budgeted line item has been spent. I'd be glad to put those into your packet on a quarterly basis if you'd like, and that'll give you at the end of the first quarter, it's 80 pages, and it's fascinating reading, numbers and. But I'd be happy to put that into the report if you'd like to have that in your packet for consumption. So,
Thank you.
Post them on the website as well.
What-
We post the monthly financials on the website as well.
Okay, thank you.
If I could jump in, we used to have quarterly reports done by our auditor. What's that? Pete Chancellor, wasn't it? Jim, do you know?
Pete Schatzel did it as an accountant, and he wasn't the auditor.
Yeah, correct. Though,
Right,
but I mean, he used to,
because the head of the finance department was not an accountant.
correct, yeah.
Okay, that would be no different
My,
than this
I'm
young
just,
lady over here.
I'm just leading into something is that Pete used to do a quarterly report, which was a pretty nice snapshot of where we were. And one of the things we incorporated into the report from my history in business was that we used to, in my business, have what we called cash and non-cash. The cash reporting was, where are we today against the money we've taken in today? The non-cash was, at that point, we had projected revenues from fees to live where they live. My point is, this report incorporating that aspect in as much as we had a cash report, which is where are we today with the revenue we got today and the revenue we spent today, and the other one was against the revenue prorated. So in other words, all of our ad valorem money comes in January. So like, your first quarterly, what you really want is you want to see where you are against 3 months worth of ad valorem, because that really gives you a clearer picture of where you're at.
Yeah, the percentage that's spent.
Well, against the percentage that came in January, prorated over that period of time.
Correct.
So I'm just saying, I would like to see if we get a report, that component incorporated into it. So that gives you a much clearer picture of where we are. Can I be any clearer for that for anybody?
I know it's both accrual and cash,
Exactly, yeah.
and Rachel could probably explain that better than I could. I think they actually do that. That's what you're prepared to do, I believe. Right? We get all our money in the beginning anyways, but he would give us that. Yes, you're correct.
So you could look at the revenue report and you could see the ad valorem line and you could see how much we received year to date and what the budgeted amount we should be receiving in total would be on an annual basis. It would show you the percentage that we've received from that total.
Right. What I'm saying is, I want to see if our ad valorem is $4 million, whatever the heck it is. We get it all at the beginning of the year. We got $400 million sitting in the bank. At the end of the first quarter, if we're just looking at that $400 million, $4 million sitting there against our expenditures over a 3-month period, it's a very rosy picture because, you've not gone through the whole year. So I want to see a portion of the revenue consistent with the portion of the expenditures in the report, which gives us a better view of where we're tracking at the time we're getting the report.
Correct.
So that's,
She did that last year, and I remember. I just wanted to do it again this year. Yeah.
Because we have our revenues and our expenses reported separately, so he's looking for the net.
at a point in time, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I used to do a very,
Yeah.
he used to come and give a presentation.
I was the one that complained to him about that. He came up with it, and then he sold it to every other city.
The next issue that I wanted to touch on that Mr. Duke had touched on were the water pipes. And whether it's water, sewer, we're gonna have pipe breaks, we're gonna have to repair them. That's just the nature of the beast with having older infrastructure. But if we are gonna talk about either replacing, instead of repairing pipes, I think that's something that should be outsourced, and there should be a study done. I don't think that's something our staff should decide whether or not.
It's gonna be part of your rate study.
That's what I'm getting at. So, I would rather, if we're gonna talk about replacing versus repairing, I think that should be something done by an outside source with engineering, municipal engineering experience rather than our staff. So for the time being, I think we should just be looking at repairing and not necessarily trying to replace sections of the city until we have the rate study and the other study done. That's my humble opinion because you kind of touched on it.
Will the rate study show, for instance, well, I think what you said.
I said rate study, which is different. That's just crunching numbers. But when you talk about the CIP, that's a different issue, and I think that would include the infrastructure over a period of time. So I think the CIP is what we should really lean on in terms of talking about replacing versus repairing.
Yeah, and there's, Mr. Duke managed looking at areas, essentially the way I understood it, correct me if I'm wrong, based on the number of breaks we have in a given area. I would tend to think that we need to dive a little deeper into it because we have water supply pipes made of different materials in different areas. So where you have galvanized pipe, you've got corrosion going on. So not only do you have pipes that are corroding and breaking, you also have corrosion that's restricting water flow. And also, I'd like to see, we all see the water tests at the city wellhead or at our processing plant, we don't see what's coming into the water at the end of the line. So you've got these rusting old end of life. And that's the other thing too, is that, you know, I can tell you right now, our galvanized pipes hit their end of life a long time ago. So, you know, yeah, we may be pumping great water out of the plant, but by the time it gets to the end of the line in an area where you've got miles of galvanized pipe, you know, I want to see what's in that water besides just the standard stuff that we measure by statute. You know, what kind of irons and what kind of other chemicals might be in that water that's coming out. So I'm just saying, not just looking at an area, because some areas have asbestos concrete, some have galvanized pipe. I'm assuming some areas have PVC. I don't know what's at Candlelight. Are they PVC down there?
That I don't know.
Yeah, we may have some HDPE pipes someplace. I don't know, you know. So there's certain pipes that by their nature don't particularly corrode. Now, they will break, like you said, you know, plastic gets brittle. The temperature of the ground expands, contracts, and impacts the pipes themselves. But we also have some other issues with some pipes that are corrosive by nature. We need to factor that into.
And that's something that staff is obviously painfully aware of, that those cast iron, we put a lot of patches on cast iron. We don't patch very much PVC. So, you know, there's a correlation, as you suggested, between the pipe type, the age, and the number of patches that we're putting on it.
Right. And to add to it, the size, I think there's some parts of the city that still have like 2-inch lines.
A lot of parts.
And I think the standard's probably a lot more than that now in terms of water pressure. So,
All on demand,
what's that?
all on demand. How many
Sure.
houses is it for you?
But those are all things that I think the CIP would give us a better look
No,
at.
I will say, when you talk about water pressure, if all of a sudden you spike the water pressure in my neighborhood, I'm gonna have a lot of old houses popping leaks, so. You know, maybe somebody's house can handle 65 PSI. My house can't, I'll tell you right now.
But I guess where I'm coming from is I don't think the staff is the right place to look at for those issues.
I am pretty much agreeing with you.
That's what I'm saying, is I'd rather have a CIP to address that. So, and because you were inquiring whether or not, you know, talk about staff, whether replace versus repair, and I would think that it's just repair until we get a CIP done.
Don't they have to get the data from our staff as to what you were saying, where the high break points were? They got, whoever makes the decision, whether it be our staff or a formal company, they have to get the data from us, correct? So that's what you're asking for them to put that data together, is that not correct?
No, what I've asked staff to do is look, you know, where do we have galvanized pipe that we've repaired 10 times in 100 feet in the last year?
Okay.
You know, that, I'm not an engineer, but that's seems to me a subject for consideration of replacement. And staff has an idea of where they're repairing the pipe because it's age and material, and where it's more likely that the ground shifted, or, you know, the truck drove over a pipe that's only 10 or 12 inches underground. So those are things we can take from the data that we have, the repair reports, and
Right.
You know, if it's a 75-year-old cast iron pipe and we've put 10 patches on it in the last year, you know, probably a candidate for, let's get a price and see what it would cost to replace that 100 feet or whatever it is.
Maybe I'm missing something, but isn't Stantec doing a CIP plan as part of the rate study?
Yeah.
So they're taking in our current infrastructure and they're saying, all right, you have so many miles of cast iron pipe with a usable life of 75 years, that's 76 years old. That must be replaced within the next 10 years. And then they're going through with galvanized pipe, usable life 50 years, that's now at 55 years or at 40 years. They're putting together that entire CIP plan as part of their rate study. And then as part of the rate study, they're then taking, okay, in order to do, and all of those repairs are going to cost you X, Y, and Z. So you're going to have a capital improvement cost over the next 10 years of $5 million.
Right.
In order to cover that $5 million nut over the next 5 years, your new rate is going to have to be X. So we're kind of already getting that all in the current.
Well, that's why I'm saying I don't want the staff to do it, because I want to go off the CIP.
Well, I think that's not going to be ready for the next year. feasibly.
Well, even when you have that information, you still have to decide, are you gonna replace so much of it this year, so much next year, so much the year after? Or are we gonna, start with the first 200 feet and go do it? Are you gonna do a bunch of it or a little bit of it, or?
They're gonna tell you, this needs to get replaced, this needs to get replaced in this time frame. The staff still has to put together the tactical plan for replacing this. So, and forgive me if I'm wrong, if you have 100-foot section of pipe that you've already done 10 patches on, chances are they're gonna come back with the CIP plan and say, you know what, by the way, you're gonna have to replace that next 100-foot span in the next 5 years. So they're gonna tell him what needs to be replaced. Tactically, he's gonna go in and replace it. And I think you're just jumping the gun a little bit and saying if you got a really hot area, you're gonna jump in and just replace it now, because you're gonna have to do it anyway.
A 75-year-old cast iron pipe is gonna get replaced.
Yeah, so I think it's
How
more of a
tactically-
strategic, the CIP plan, I agree. Tactically, it's still on him.
Okay, thank you.
And
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, just countrywide, I mean, they stopped putting in cast iron pipe back in the, I don't know, 70s or 80s, I mean, so there's absolutely no doubt that the cast iron pipe in our city is well beyond its usable lifespan by decades, so it's not a matter of a year or two. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to look at this, and it's a subject I brought up before, and that is, if you have an awful lot of bad water lines in the city, you float a bond. That's what utility company, whether it's the county, whether it's cities all around the world, or all around the country, if you need to do a whole bunch of pipe replacing, because all that pipe in an area is 40 years out, well, you don't prorate that project over 20 years. You got to do it. And what you do is you float a bond, and then you build the bond payments, interest and principal, into the utility fee, and you pay off the bond. That's why there are bonds, is so that we can spend more money than we could possibly raise utility rates to cover in a short period of time. So I'm just throwing that out there. We need to we need to explore all our options. I don't like debt any more than the next guy. I don't carry personal debt. And, I don't like to see the city carrying debt, but there's debt for a reason. And I'm just not advocating doing that right now. I'm just throwing that out there to put into everybody's mind to keep looking at moving forward.
The CIP plan, as part of the rate study, will determine that almost instantaneously, because if they come back and say 75% of your pipes are past their useful life, your rate study, if you had to replace them all immediately, would be astronomical.
Yeah,
If you float a bond, and then your rate study your new rate would be Y, because you're just floating it into the bond and putting your costs up. We're gonna know in 6 months.
That's all. I'm just putting a thought out there into the conversation.
And other than saying Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, that's all that I had, so I won't take time in the commentary section. All right, Vice Mayor.
Attorney? Careful.
I heard motion.
Careful, that is non-debatable. Don't make that motion if you else you mean.
One thing I want to bring up, you were talking about marking the street, so forth. Can you include crosswalks? There's areas intersections that there's a lot of foot traffic, and there's no crosswalk, so if that could be included.
Yeah.
I have nothing.
Scott just burned us off.
I know,
You can
it's almost 8 o'clock already.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. We'll move on to commentary from any boards and committees. I didn't see any signed up. Seeing none, we're gonna go on to the consent agenda, looking for a motion.
Motion approved the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We're gonna go on to the Keys at Cody River Utility Easement Agreement, and I'm gonna pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
I'll defer that to Mr. Matthew.
Take care of it.
Okay.
It's a very exciting agenda item.
I read every word.
It's the Washington Street project. The main thrust of this agreement, which is very important to the city, especially in the long run, is two easements here. We've already had them prepared, and I didn't want it prepared and filed. It's just one parcel there, as you know. It's, although we proved it as a PUD, it's just one parcel. We have, so, and it's kind of good to know this, we're going, I don't know, 30, 40 feet or whatever, for potable water going in. There's a master meter. So what these easements do, as well as this agreement, allows us to get access to them for repair of the master meter and that 30, 40 feet of pipe. Beyond that, for potable water, we have no responsibility whatsoever. With regard to sewer, there's a black flow assembly, which is something over by the street. Okay, so we only need a few feet over there, 5 or 10 feet, to be able to access that. But more importantly, the agreement talks about the fact that we don't own or maintain anything on the other side of that, whatever it is. Okay, and since there will be roads in there, we could patrol if police wanted to. They felt that, things like that, but it's totally up to us. Okay, the council wanted to have traffic control pursuant to the statute. That's something else. Once they have their streets in, they'll check to see whether they should be 10 or 20 miles an hour, but that'll still again be up to the city if they want to do that.
But this agreement does allow our fire and police to go in there and do the jobs they need to do. If there's a fire, if there's
I'm sure if Mr. McClary's house caught on fire, they would do that. He's on the end of a private street right now. We don't need that authority. We have a fire.
so we do not need the authority.
It's like, we're kind of like saying, can I only go on your front lawn, not the back lawn, to put out a fire? It's just one big parcel.
Okay, I'm just inquiring.
Yeah, even if this agreement wasn't there, we'd have the ability to go on there. Police could go on there.
In other words, if there's a police call, somebody dials 911.
Always
we
do
go
that.
in.
Somebody,
Yeah, obviously, calls for a health issue are.
That's everywhere in the city.
I presume you're looking for a motion?
Yes, it's council approved, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve the, go ahead. After you, Bill.
Oh, thank you. Motion to approve the Keys to Cody River Utility Easement Agreement.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're gonna go on to Chapel Avenue Lift Station in Valve, a vault rehabilitation, which is our next item. I'm gonna pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request to rehab another one of our lift stations. The circumstances, the company, the contract are very similar to the two that you've approved several months ago. This is the next step in rehabbing our lift stations. So this one's at Chapel Avenue. Would request a motion to approve the rehab for $32,400.
So my question would be this and the following one. It says fiscal impact sewer impact fees. So we've already collected the sewer impact fees to pay for this?
Yes.
Okay. But it's not coming out of general fund, it's coming out of impact fees.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask that, and then if it's budgeted as well. The budgeted item.
Yeah, the impact fee is in the budget.
Okay.
The specific, we're gonna spend it on this item is not listed in the budget.
Right, but we have plenty of money in that
Yes.
pot of money. That's where I'm going with
Yes.
this. Okay. That's all the only question I had. Sorry, Mr. McClary.
Two questions. One, I presume this is right now it's being upgraded or shown as being upgraded. This is to support the new development that's going in on Washington Street, correct?
On the east side, in addition to Washington, there's other development, not as large, obviously.
Which
But
I'm
yeah, this
assuming a bulk of the impact fees came from.
Yes. So this lift station services Grand Boulevard, Washington, Pine Hill, Leo Kidd. There may be other.
Yeah,
smaller
so between the two of these, that satisfies all the need for those developments from a sewage perspective. There's nothing that we are projecting currently to go outside of our impact fees.
Correct.
For those. The second, and I guess this is more of a technical question. I keep looking on the City of Fort Ritchie purchase request form, and the instructions on it say, for anything under $2,500, we only need to fill in one. For anything over $2,500, we need to fill in all three lines. Or is this a
This is
sole source?
No, this is a piggyback contract. So
Okay.
the city of Cape Coral bid the project, bid the pricing. This company was awarded the contract, and the pricing for this service is within their proposal. We are using the exact same pricing that was given to Cape Coral. So
But I understand that, but from the form's perspective, that doesn't delineate between the two. Yes, we're piggybacking, but it says all roads must be completed for standard purchases. I'm assuming this is a standard purchase, over $2,500. Doesn't say anything about piggyback or anything like that. And then row 1 must be completed for standard purchases under $2,500, which this isn't, sole source, which this isn't, or emergency purchases, which this isn't. Could we correct this in future to align with what we're doing? Because right now, the way I read this, all 3 lines should be filled out, even if it is a piggyback.
understood, yes.
Before we go any further, can I ask the city attorney,
Does that make a difference?
right, in terms of, in other words,
You're gonna be sorry you asked.
okay,
I'm joking with you. No, that's a very good observation. I pointed it out on numerous occasions that the form is deficient. It has not changed. Okay? There are several of these forms floating around the city. I think you should get to one generic form that works and it's proper. Okay? So your point is well taken there, all right? This is a piggyback. For a piggyback, according to our procurement code, which we must follow since we've said it, means that you must show, these were my recommendations, I put in the policies, procedures, and checklists for other cities, how they do it, show that it went out to bid, okay, that the bid was awarded to a governmental agency, and that the price is the same. So I presume these prices are the same. I don't know. It looks like it from here. It's a relatively modest amount. Is it taken off what was awarded and the price is the same? I haven't checked it. Okay, so if you wanted to ask, I have no reason to doubt it's correct. But in any event, those documents are there for auditing purposes. It should always be there for auditing purposes. Whether those documents are here, I don't know. Okay, but that's correct. The form is deficient. I regard.
just because the form's deficient doesn't mean that,
No, it makes no difference. No, that's just a matter. In other words, this document here goes through the 4 signatures to make sure that we're complying with the procurement code, because when we get audited, they look for that. The mere fact that the form is deficient, they're gonna look for substance, not form.
Okay.
The form's purpose is to make sure you get the substance right.
so I guess the other question that I have is obviously Cape Coral went out to bid on this and this was the company in the bid that they.
I presume.
So the question is whether or not that bid was consistent or better than the other, I guess, bids, and,
It wouldn't make a difference if that bid was better. It's the one that was awarded the bid. It went through a governmental process that we're now relying upon.
Okay.
Okay, for $1 million, you might look at it differently, but it went out to bid and it's in the state of Florida. I always call for higher standards when it's outside the state of Florida. But it went out to bid, and Cape Coral did it. They awarded the bid, so we can rely on that. The documents necessary are proof that it went out to bid. I think there's enough in here because you can see from their resolutions, it went out to bid.
Okay.
This is the fact that it was awarded to them. It looks that way from certain documents in here, and that was the contracted amount. So now what you want to do is the contracted amount for 22,000 or whatever the figure is that in that bid? Okay, I don't know. Normally that'd be the only 2 documents you really need. You understand me? Yeah, but when I get those kind of things. Is it in here? I don't know. I don't go looking for that. That's how you would normally see it. You understand what I mean? Like you'd have a checklist on the front that says it went out to bid on this date. It was granted on this date. Here's the awarding of the bid. And here's the portion of the bid that shows you the prices, and we've just matched it up against the quote we're getting now.
but that would be the form.
I presume it's in there.
Because there's a resolution.
You gotta remember, you only need to, you need to do that. You only have to go out to bid if it's over 25,000 for us. So one of them's above, the other is just 3 quotes. So you can do that in the same fashion. These are relatively minor.
Well, actually, now that I'm looking, yeah. The lift station bid price here for restoration and protective solutions, according to the bid tabulation, is $23,640. We have $32,400.
Right.
So maybe it's on page 67, going through where they have their bid tabulation. I presume this was the what we're going off of. Lift station, 6-foot diameter, depth 23 feet, 5-day duration, which I believe is what we have. And they're at 23,640.
There's another 37, it's the 32,400.
No, there's a 32 figure in there too.
Yeah, but that's from Paints and Coatings Inc. That's not
No,
from
it's
the,
from Restoration and Protection Solutions.
no, you go across.
No, across is the
I'm looking at page
23.6.
37.
No, 67.
No, I'm looking at 37.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they're going off of, but if you look at the bid tabulation,
That's our
on
estimate.
page 6, yeah, this is our estimate
Right.
that they're giving us.
Right.
They're saying they're piggybacking it off of an existing contract with an existing agency, Cape Coral or whomever. So you go to the bid tabulation for Cape Coral on page 67,
Mhm.
and there should be a 32.4 number theoretically.
Right, and it's 32.6, or 23.6, I'm sorry.
It's 23.6.
Right. The 32 figure is another company that didn't get the bid.
Correct, yeah, 32.9 wasn't the low bidder, so
Correct.
I guess they don't matter really, because we're piggybacking for paint restoration and protective solutions.
Correct. So the question is whether or not these are apple-to-apple bids. Or does that not matter?
Well, when you say apple to apple bids, the quotation we have should match what the awarding of the bid, you know.
It should be a 32.4 and a
Yes, yeah,
32.4 at the end of the day.
Mr. McClary's correct, yeah, it's exactly right. Now, maybe in there, I didn't look at it, I don't study that, I give it up doing that.
I'm not comfortable piggybacking off a number that doesn't match what we're doing.
Now theoretically, it could be if there's like a unit pricing or something.
Well, I think there is unit pricing in here, yeah, you'd
Look
have
at
to.
71, Todd. Page 71, see what because that's got the number that matches what's in our packet.
2022. Price breakdown quote with bid contract.
And that's for our city, that's not.
So could,
Yeah,
Our bid be-
that's basically because this is 10/28/22, this is 10/28/22, but the bid was done earlier. Yeah, 12/8/20.
Yeah.
so could the 23 be, I don't know any, like, for a different number of feet, maybe ours, it's big, I don't, you know, like.
Well, that's the problem though,
The
if we're
unit price be,
piggybacking, it's gotta be
well, but if it's the unit price is the same, but we have a different size, would that matter?
So-
Would that make the price more?
If I could, I think the 3 pages that you want to compare, and maybe I need to tab these next time. Page 37 is restorative and protective solutions price to us. Page 51 is their price schedule confirmed. That was bid to Cape Coral. And page 71, line number 2, item number 5B, we want a Gracie blasting 6-foot. The unit price is $90. We go back to 51, come down to 5B, $90. We want 20 feet of it, and that's $1,800. Come back to page 37, the $1,800 for 5B, abrasive blasting.
So they're
for 6
taking the
feet.
unit pricing from the previous, not necessarily the lump sum.
Oh, right, correct, yeah, of course, yeah, they're matching up unit price.
But that's what I'm trying to figure out, is if it's the same, and that's.
That's
It
the point.
appears that it is.
It's the unit price, labor price, all the price. It's basically what was agreed to in the Cape Coral bid, every component of it, that price is applied to our particular project, which is obviously gonna be different. It's gonna be different.
That's correct.
No, it's just not clear by looking at this if that's the case. I guess that's what I was trying to figure out. If the unit prices are the
Now I
same.
understand. Okay.
It probably is. I don't think they're trying to trick you or anything.
No, I-
It makes it easier because
The probably is kind of makes
Before I
me
say yes, I gotta feel
it. Well, you do the same evaluation. The next line, 8A, bypassing for 8-inch flow. If you,
On page 71, they're listed numbers, you can.
8A, $500, we want 6 days of it, it's gonna be $3,000. Yep.
Okay, so the unit pricing is correct, we're just having different amounts, less or more than Cape Coral.
All right.
But see, the more important thing is this comes into the city. They just highlight that to match it. Someone needs to check that here. Well, if they
Right.
checked it here, they would have highlighted it. You could have it right in front of you, right?
Right.
Okay,
Give you some confidence it was done, right? Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
So for future,
Next time.
for future, I think an updated form, we'll update the form. And then highlight the unit price off the piggyback versus what we're getting to make
Put it
sure.
right behind the form, that way we can see
Or
it
just
right
put it
away.
on a summary sheet.
Yeah.
We have summary sheets that I've seen so far. I provided them for this.
Okay.
That was a save of 25 minutes.
Still less than him jabbering on his comments, so.
One other thing for clarity is when someone comes onto the system and it has a direct impact on the system, that's not impact fees, okay? Those are developmental fees that we charge that have a direct impact. You can call them impact, but impact fees are something else. Impact fees are also charged to someone. So someone comes onto the system, Washington Street, okay? And we have to do certain things just to handle that load as a direct impact to what to do, and that's a development agreement. Okay, that's done at the inception. They also pay impact fees because for the expansion of the system and anywhere else, not specifically related to their impact. These impact fees for these two stations are not in any way related. These are coming from our regular impact fees because they're an upgrade to the system, right? Nothing to do with the development.
Oh, okay.
Which
That's still outstanding.
should be a separate agreement, which
So
we don't
there's a
have.
separate one for.
That's still, that issue's still outstanding to my knowledge. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Right.
In other words, I don't know if there is a direct impact or not, okay? I've been waiting since we passed it to see if there was, because that's development agreement. That's why you're getting it so late. You understand what I mean? If it was, I've sent it over. You guys get ready to do a development agreement here. See if we have a direct impact as well as these kind of issues for our,
So there's still the direct impact of Washington.
I think that's out there totally in terms of, I don't know, I'm not the building official, yeah, but I think it had something to do with the amount of sewage that could be handled going into the county. We don't do sewer, we just move it.
We just move it.
And it might be none, you understand what I mean, just looking at it, but that's a different, when you had said it before, I just wanted to help you with it. This isn't the impact fees on Chapel and Regis Street. These are impact fees that have been gotten from every development that we charge, because you're upgrading the system. You can't use it for maintenance, what's the word, is it rehabilitation or
Yeah.
something like that? Yeah, as long as, but that's why they're going from,
It's only the capacity increases.
increased capacity, because it's impacting the whole system, right?
All right, so, looking for a motion.
I have one question. On this particular agenda item, as well as the next one, I'm questioning the horsepower of the pumps. I see that we've increased, so on this particular agenda item, is 20 horsepower sufficient for current as well as future? I mean, is it something that we should consider planning down the road as well?
Yeah, I guess I'm not an engineer, but the pumps that we have are handling the system now. But it makes sense to us to put in bigger now because, you know, there's gonna be more coming in on that side of the city. So, that's a fuzzy answer, but that,
I'm
you
just
know, I didn't go out
wondering,
and measure the
would-
head
I mean,
pressures.
But that actually would be an impact fee if we have to upgrade the pump then down the road.
It would come from additional
Yeah,
impact fees. That's
additional,
correct. Yeah, you started to
so
see
if
it.
a new development came in and we needed a 25 horsepower pump, that would actually be the impact fee to the new development.
Right, it was right out front. Now, which we can't handle it. You're gonna overflow the system just you coming on, and that's a development issue. But we get impact fees because as you do that, it has, you know, the ripple effect goes all over. So these impact fees, no, but that's a fair question. You know, whether I guess you could make everything 10 times bigger, you know, I don't know the system. I'm not an engineer, you know, but I presume that was looked at, you know, in other words, I presume an engineer made the decision to go to the one level to the next. That's what US Water does.
All right, so we've run off one of the council folks now.
Bill gave up
He
the
left, he
left.
tried to get away last time.
I see that.
Yes,
Question
that's
is-
a good question.
The question is whether or not we can motion and vote minus the council person.
I think you can wait a second, right?
All right.
I like the Christmas tree. Can we do that all year long?
What's that?
I like the Christmas tree.
I have a problem that it's up before Thanksgiving.
I
I
understand.
second this. Let's celebrate Thanksgiving.
I think we're gonna have to do some kind of consent here on this.
No, it's pretty.
So looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the Chapel Avenue lift station and valve vault rehabilitation for 32,400.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 5, which is Regis Avenue Lift Station, and that's going to be to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Well, copy paste what we just went through with the previous item. We are
Rinse and repeat.
hoping to upgrade the Regis Avenue lift station with a price tag of $25,800. The same basic service area, Grand, Washington, Pine Hill, Leo Kid, and other feeders. Would request a motion to approve.
Motion to approve Regis Avenue lift station rehabilitation for $21,800.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Going on to item 6, which is the discussion of review of current city code controlling alcohol sales. Something that I asked to be put on. I'm going to pass it to Mr. Matthew for introduction.
This is the remaining blue law, as they're known, in the city of Port Richey. Not that you should do things the county does, but they eliminated their one last blue law about 18 months ago. I looked that up. In front of you is the blue law, which means that it changes or restricts the sale of alcohol on and off the premises, different than it does at other times. So on Sundays, you can't sell alcohol before 11 in the morning, okay, on premises, off premises. It goes through the closing hours. You'll see these vendors in section E, in case you're wondering. One is malt liquor, one's wines, one's hard liquor, so it's the same thing. And that's for, so it covers everything. You can restrict the sale of alcohol. It's a home rule. So if you want to get rid of the blue law, as they're known in Port Richey, just say so, and I'll change that to be 7 in the morning, just like every other day.
I have a question. When you read this, it says, you shall not dispense alcohol on weekdays between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Mhm.
So I looked up the definition of weekdays. It's any day except the weekend.
Which includes Saturday. You
It
can
does
do it.
include Saturday.
I know you can do it anytime Saturday. As a matter of fact, I'm not an alcohol expert. I consulted with the mayor. He explained it to me the other day.
I
So, that's a joke. Yeah, you can sell alcohol at any time on Saturday. All night, all night sales. All night, yeah, go for it, yeah.
On Saturday.
Now, you want to restrict Saturdays, we could put that right in
Yeah,
there.
so right now, you have to close between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m.
I'm moving.
Monday through Friday, Saturday, you can drink all night long.
Friday night you're actually doing that when you think about
Yeah,
it.
Friday night into Saturday, you're drinking all night long.
There you go.
I love the city.
It's that way, it's that way everywhere.
Everywhere, hence the bottle clubs, you see them up until 4 in the morning.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's just-
It took me an hour to figure that. I actually called them. I'm not joking about this.
I was reading this, I'm like, why isn't every bar open all night Friday?
Sometimes they are though. You look at Bite Fest, sometimes they're open till 3 or 4 in the morning on certain nights when they're not shut down by
No
staff.
kidding.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
So do we, so while we're.
I'm kind of glad you asked that question because I thought it was me.
No, I saw this, I'm like, is there a big hole in this?
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
So I mean, are we going to now restrict Saturday that we found this great loophole? Or did we-
I think we just move to make it consistent with the county and not just our county, but Hillsborough County, a lot of the
And I might
neighboring
add,
towns.
you know, when I brought this up too, you know, during our last discussion about the event, was not only the county, but Newport Ritchie.
Yes.
So we are literally a tiny city surrounded by a huge area where we're the only place you can't like buy a 6-pack of beer before you get on your boat.
Right.
It's just, it's considering everybody else changed the rules, our little city being essentially different, it doesn't make any sense at all. So, yeah, basically makes the same, 7 days a week. Jim, I'll leave it to you to make sure that, whatever this time warp issue you and Tom and them gets.
No, the Saturdays we can do it at any time. No,
We're drinking
no, we
all
don't
night
need to.
Saturday.
All night Friday night?
So I think we're just drinking all the time, is that what you're
No, we're not gonna change any of that.
We need to make it
You can
Tuesday
drink
all
after Friday night all night long and sell alcohol.
At 7.
It's not yet. That's where our code is now. And so is
Every other
yeah.
Tuesday.
Yes.
So what I was looking to see
Really? I know it's hard to believe.
can we frame a motion is this an action item where we can frame a motion?
Just say I move to get rid of the blue law and I'll have an ordinance here next year.
Strike the blue
We're basically
underline.
instructing Jim to rework as an ordinance, and then we'll vote it like an ordinance.
Yeah, you'll see these 11 a.m.s turn into 7 a.m.s.
Okay.
It's like the others.
Looking for motion?
Motion to do that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to,
Motion to do that.
looks like an action item for the cancellation of December 27 meeting, 2022, council meeting. Pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been the history of this body to consider not holding their scheduled second council meeting in December, so we put it on the agenda, and if it's your pleasure, I'd request a motion to approve cancellation of the December 27, 2022.
Motion to cancel the December 27, 2022 city council meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
One of
opposed?
the only things we didn't debate tonight.
You don't want to chat about it for a while?
Let's.
On to old business, there were 2 items that were kind of spelled out for old business. I'll pass that to Mr. Duke.
Get back to my old business. I think they were the pier, which
Which you touched on.
Yes.
Touched on the street projects.
the street projects, as I mentioned in my report, are ongoing. We get communication between the potential contractor and iWorks to actually determine what the iWorks language is for what remediation or what repair is needed for which level of street. So that's where the street repair, street maintenance project is right now.
Any other old business, starting with Vice Mayor Consolidate?
Nothing.
I do have one item, and I think this falls under old business, although I may have it incorrectly. I know we all received an email from the business district on Cody River about making it a wet zone for New Year's. Is that something we're contemplating? I know this is kind of related, but separate from these hours that we were talking about.
Yeah, that was in the email in the request for a meeting. In the meeting that we actually held today, it was, I told you can ask council to do whatever you want. You know, you bring a proposal to council, I'll put it in front of them. My encouragement to the group of businesses was, let's see how New Year's Eve goes. Let's get through that, and they aren't asking for anything specific from the city. They're not asking for street closures or changes in code or, you know, any special rules or anything like that. They basically are letting us know every business plans to hold an event on their own property. So my advice to them was get through that. You know, let's get through New Year's, and then the first part of next year, second or third week of January, we're going to get all of the business owners together with me and some of my staff and kind of review how it went, and then talk about other possibilities, including would it be possible to change the rules for specific events, New Year's, 4th of July, or whatever. But my encouragement to them was, let's pull this one off without any significant trauma and go from there. So they were okay with that, decided to not ask for anything. They'll just do their thing, and we'll support like we do with public safety and get together after the New Year's and rewatch.
On that note, I was asked the same, and my comment, my feeling, and I told them that I was uncomfortable with making any area down there a wet zone until we have all our safety features in place, sidewalks, crosswalks, lighting. You know, and I said, while everything sits the way it is, I'm not comfortable with that. So that was my response when I was asked, is they had asked me about that.
That was part of, excuse me, that was part of my conversation today, that we're going to spend a bunch of money. Right now it's dark, it's, you know,
No sidewalks.
dangerous, no sidewalks, no lights. Let's make some progress. And I told them, you know, if you want to change code, it's going to take you 6 months to a year, and that assumes that this body, you know, says yes. They can say no too. There's a lot of factors to be hashed out when you start talking about that kind of code change. So going to push that off into the new year. But obviously, if there comes a time where that group of businesses, and they're including the businesses on Grant,
Well, I mean,
I think that's a
to be
conversation
clear,
for a later date.
It appeared to come from an organization. I never heard it before. Is it even an organization, or
It is
they just kind of make that
what
up?
I would, yeah, it's a made-up name. They gave a name to a gathering of business owners, but it's not a 501c3. It's not a corporation. I was told today. It's a bunch of business owners that are getting together to try to work on things together. And told them I appreciated the city being looped in. I wish we would have been looped in a month or two ago.
Right, they were advertising an event before you even knew there was.
Correct. So we're jumping in kind of at the last minute here, but this is not the time to think about changing the code, in my opinion. If they bring it to you and you want to change the code, that's your business.
I tend to agree. Lights and sidewalks would be good before you start having drunk people stumbling around.
All right, no, I had no old business.
I don't know if this old business, what is this metal thing glued in front of me?
It was to cover the holes for the
Cover
old
plate
mic,
for the microphone.
because I cut the holes in for the old mic.
Remember
Those
the
were-
little mics that?
Those were removed and these were.
To put your
installed.
paper clips.
Just put your water bottle
Is it
on.
magnetized? Can that be a magnetic phone charger?
You put your phone on there, see how it goes.
Put your phone on there and let you know how it works out for you.
Gravy.
Put it next.
I have
I don't know, there's a lot of wires down there, it might be.
Just start pulling on those too.
Looking for a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good.